one of the best tools or items that I utilize when it comes springtime and everybody starts sowing seeds and getting their seed starts. I'm going to give you the way I go about doing it, utilizing these storage containers. Now, I realize that this is not something original and brand new to me, but I want to give my 2 cents worth here and discuss some key details, because I have seen and found out for myself and through other people that these things aren't as good as they seem to be. But the caveat to that is it's all about the storage container that you choose, because this is the best one and best thing going out there, in my opinion. I'll be right back. So I use these as miniature greenhouses for my seed starting, and I have done so for years now. And it's one of the best ways that I have found to go about it, especially if you don't have a full-size greenhouse, or maybe you don't have a garage and a basement full of all that expensive equipment and grow lights and racks and stuff like this. This is the most efficient, easy, economical, effective way that I have utilized myself when it comes to seed starting and growing seedlings. But a lot of people haven't had such great success with these. They started out, it looks like a good idea, sounds like a good idea, and they find out that there's a lot of frustration and aggravations when it comes to utilizing these. They don't seem to cut the mustard. But there's a good reason why that is, and I want to give my 2 cents worth in here, and I'm hoping that you're going to get some really beneficial tips and reasons why you might want to reconsider using these storage containers and tubs. Not all storage containers or these tubs are built and designed equally, and the devil is in the details for your success. When I'm talking about success, I'm talking about that it's easy, effective, efficient, and it's enjoyable without the frustrations and aggravations that come along with the details in choosing the wrong storage tub or container. Because if you enjoy doing this, you're more apt to be taking care of your storage containers here. And if you enjoy it and taking care of it, and you're going to get the longevity out of them. Right now, I'm in my 4th year of using these particular containers. I have about 6 or 8 of these things, and they're still going strong, just as the day when I bought them. And when I bought mine about 4 years ago, I think it was $7 and something, but $8 and something with tax. They're probably around $10 today. I'm not real for sure about that. For $10, and for 4 years later, or I'm in my 4th year, I still have a storage container that I've been utilizing for seed starting and growing seedlings in, and I still got my container in just as good a shape as it was when I bought it. Maybe a little bit dirtier now, but that's pretty economical. So that's a big thing here. So let's talk about when it comes to choosing the right container in these things, because there's all sorts of seed starting kits out there. And as a matter of fact, I just saw a video a couple days ago from a guy named Dan. Some of you may know him. He's down there in Mississippi, I believe. Home in the Sticks YouTube channel. And he presented what he just bought from a company down there, and that looks like a great. That's one of the better seed starting kits that I've seen out there, outside of this. And the reason I say outside of this, because I think for his little seed starting kit, for one of them, he paid like $50-something, but it looks like a good one. It looks like one of the best ones I've seen out there. I really like the design and everything, and the functionality of it. I'm just not keen on the $50-something for it, when I've been utilizing these for 4 years with awesome success and only paid like $8 for this miniature greenhouse. So let's go over a couple things that I want to recommend to you. The first thing we want, for obvious reasons, we want a clear container, or just as close to clear as you can get, like this one. For obvious reasons, we want to allow sunlight to come through. The second thing I would recommend is make sure you get a sturdy one. You can tell the difference when you pick one up in a store. If you go to a box store or something like that, you can tell the difference between the thicker plastics and the thinner ones, and the ones that have good support structures molded into it. Like on the bottom of this one here, we got a little raised corners there. That provides structure, strength, and rigidity to the plastics. It's an all plastic molding. It's kind of like metal siding or metal roofing. You know how you have those little ridges in the metal siding or in the roof? That's just not for aesthetic purposes. That provides strength and rigidness to that flat piece of metal. It'd be flat otherwise if it didn't have those. And that's what we look for in our plastic too. The next thing I would highly recommend is I would go with one that has depth to it, like this one does here. I wouldn't go with the shallow one because I'm going to utilize this as a greenhouse, right? And the reason I like the taller ones here, such as this one, is because it gives me a little bit more time, flexibility, and room for my seedling or plant foliage growth. Because let's face it, we can time things all we want, and sometimes that timing just doesn't work out because we don't have any control over Mother Nature. And if it comes a heavy rainstorm or a late frost, maybe a freeze of some sort, we might find ourselves in a position where we thought we were going to do our transplanting into the garden or something like that. It doesn't quite work out because of the weather. So this allows more foliage growth and still provide the greenhouse effect or protection if needed with our seedlings. The next thing, obvious one that I would highly consider, and a lot of people recommend, is these clickable and lockable latches to your lid. That's important. That comes in very handy when it comes to moving these things around, because these things are mobile. We can move from indoors to outdoors, outdoors to indoors. That's what makes these things so nice when you don't have a full-size greenhouse or some elaborate setup in a basement or a garage. So this provides more strength and security when you're transporting or moving these things around. So you want the lockable ones. You don't want the ones that just kind of snap on there. Plus it gives you more security with your pets, you know, or if you have them sitting outside on the back patio or something and you get higher winds, then you got a little bit more secure little miniature greenhouse here. The next thing is you want a good stackable container. I think just about all of them are stackable, but like I said, not all containers are built equally. This particular one here has a nice ridge on the outside and it's thick and sturdy, as opposed to something like this, which has this very sleek, smooth, minimal lip here. When you stack the next container on top of it, it doesn't provide much security in the form of, you know, the side to side and front to back motion there. So you want something that when you set the next container on, that it locks in a little bit, because if these things are stackable right side up, they're stackable upside down, and that becomes important with these little miniature mobile greenhouses if you're going to do multiples. Because when you take these things here from outside to indoors, maybe inside your house, because you know the temperatures at night are getting down in the low 30s, the 20s, or the teens, but you got ambient sun to set them outside, but they might freeze if you don't bring them inside. Well, if you have 4, 5, 6, 8 of these like I do, you don't want to have all that floor space taken up in your shop, your garage, or inside your house or cabin. So when you stack them up like that, 3 or 4 high, you're only taking the same amount of floor space as one container would take up. So that works out very handy and very nice. Now, the most important thing when it comes to choosing the right container. This is what is going to make or break you. The most important thing is in the lid. And I want to explain why here. The first thing we want in a lid, obviously we want a strong lid. You want something very, durable, a little bit thicker, heavier duty. This particular one fits that criteria for me. If you look in here, you see all these little pieces that are injected in here. Those all structural support. And you take a look at this lid here, through the span from left to right, front to rear, we have these ribs that are molded into the plastic. If we didn't have these ribs, this would just be one big span of flimsy plastic like you had in lids like this. Very flimsy. And other lids like this. I got about 5 lids here. But I have a very strong lid here that comes on a container, and this works out very well when it comes to strength as a storage container. But this lid here does not cut the mustard when it comes to a greenhouse. Let me explain. Because the next thing and most important thing that we want in that lid is we want our lid to be a container. Just like your seed starting kits, the plats in them, or the pans. They're about an inch and a half high or 2 inches in depth. Something like that. And the reason is so that we can water and feed our seedlings and our plants through the wicking method, which is very important when you're first starting out seeds. And you got little delicate seedlings up, you don't want to water from the top because we don't want to disrupt their seeds and we don't want to disrupt that soil. Have you ever seen those super magnified pictures or slow motion video of rain droplets coming down on the top of a surface of water or on the ground, and it's super magnified? In that small world, it looks like atomic bombs being dropped on the ground. It's a very violent act, so imagine if you're a spider or an ant or a fly or something like that. That's horrific. That's equivalent to like 5 or 10 gallon rain droplets falling on us, man. It would just annihilate us. That's why you don't want to water your seed starts or delicate seedlings from the top, and it's best to do it from wicking. Well, in order to do that, we need a container type lid or pan, kind of like baking a turkey or a full-size chicken in the oven. And you know the difference between putting it on a cookie sheet or a cake style pan, and that's what we want in a lid. And this one meets that criteria. That is huge. Now the other thing is in our lid, because you have so many different moldings going on. And all these lids, I have about 5 lids here that don't cut the mustard. And the reason is because they're concave, they're convex if you turn them upside down, or the different structures of moldings in there. It doesn't allow for me to have a flat surface. I have ribs on my lid, structural ribs on this container lid. But when I turn it upside down here to utilize it as a tray for my greenhouse, it's nice and flat. I have small channels in here, not big wide channels. So when I put my soil blocks, because that's what 90% of my seed starting is, I use soil blocks, and I make my own soil composition, everything off the property or local here. I don't buy any of that stuff. So it's very important for me. But all my soil blocks, and I fit somewhere between 44 and 60 soil blocks in this particular lid or container. Typically I like to stay around 52, but they all sit flat. And that's what I want. And that becomes important because when we're doing our watering and feeding of our seedlings and our plants, and doing it by wicking, we want that to be evenly distributed. All you have to do is be on level surface or ground, and I get that even watering and feeding of all my plants. So that's very important. That's the primary reason why all these other lids and all these other containers, either they're extremely flimsy, because they're not a good molding, they're thin, or they're very shallow. I can't water by wicking and get that even distribution. This lid here is concave. turn it upside down like I want to use it. Now it's convex. I have a few little tabs in here for structural support, but I got this vast majority in here that doesn't have any. So it's very flimsy, thin, and everything. This is one of them snap-on types. You don't want that. Doesn't work. This one here, concave, turn it upside down, convex. But the way they got their structure in here, same thing. It's shallow. If I try to water or feed on this lid here, it would just run to the outside here, fill this outside channel, and then come out the edge here. This very sturdy lid, like so. It looks like it would work like this, but this is the top of the container lid. Turn it upside down, complete opposite. My water would run off into this deep channel, and then it would just leak out of these holes right here that you see. No good. Here's a clear one, still flimsy, no structural ridge or anything like that through all this inner portion of it. It's thin, doesn't work. This here is actually a pretty good lid for this storage container that I have. I have some of these, and for a storage container, it's a good lid. For a greenhouse, it's terrible, because I have some structural rises in this lid here that gives me strength to this lid. But if I try to water by wicking and feed, all my water comes to the outside, and it would just leak out over the edge before it comes to this raised edge here. Strong, sturdy, but not a container. This particular lid for this storage container meets all the criteria, just like the seed starting kits. But I only paid $8 for my whole 72 quart container here, as opposed to paying for them real cheapy ones. I'm in my 4th year. This meets all the criteria, but it has some other neat little things about this. This particular lid, you know, if I'm using it as a greenhouse here, I got my greenhouse here, I take my top off here, I set my top right side up, and this lid fits inside of it just dandy. So you can keep them off the ground, your plants and stuff like that. It's very handy. I mean, I don't think this company designed this to be a miniature greenhouse, but it just turns out that it works absolutely perfect. It's a beautiful, beautiful design, and it wasn't intended to be so for a miniature greenhouse. Another little nice nifty thing about this. All I have to do is, when I pick these up, I do one minor modification, and that is it. And this is important based on some other videos or examples that I've seen of people trying to do this, is I want to provide ventilation, just like in a greenhouse. I only drill 2 holes in here. This is important. If you notice this hole right here, it's about a 1/2 inch to 9/16, and that's as big as I would go. You can have 1 hole, you can have 2, 3, 4 holes, whatever you want. But if you keep it at about 1/2 inch to 9/16, which is plenty. If you have multiple holes here, all you have to do is take a piece of Scotch tape or electrical tape, and you can cover as many holes if you do the multiple hole one to control the amount of air flow you get in there. But I only have 1. On the other side, if we flip it out here, I have 1 more hole. That's it. 2 holes is all I've drilled into this. And notice the placement of this. This is closer to the top. I recommend about 2 inches from the top or the bottom of your container, and drill your 1/2 inch 9/16 hole. Drill it very carefully. You just want to barely get it started, and then if you have a reversible drill for your drill bit, I would go in reverse, maybe a little higher speed. Back it up on the back side here with a 2x4 piece of wood or something like that. Run your drill in reverse and let the friction between your drill bit and your plastic heat and melt through the plastic. And that way you don't create any cracking. You got a nice clean hole. That's all I would do. So I have 1 here close to the top in this orientation. And on the other side, I have 1 here closer to the bottom. And what that does, we know it's going to warm up inside our greenhouse. Hot air rises. So in my upper hole, as that hot air rises, it's going to want to escape out of that upper hole. And then that's going to create a draft in my lower hole. So if you have them all set, the hot air is going to escape out of here first, and create a small little draft, and you get some continuous air, fresh air circulation in your miniature greenhouse. And like I said, you can determine how many holes you want. I've had no issues. This is in my 4th season, so after 3 years of utilizing this particular container, I have had no issues with just drilling one hole on opposite sides at different levels, and it works out perfect. If you need any more and your plants are getting stronger, or you go off to harden them, you just pop your lid off. No big deal. So one piece of advice that I want to advise you against is, I've seen somebody drill holes. I mean, they take one of these and they drill all these holes all over, like 50 or 100 holes, little holes all over the greenhouse. I don't know why in the world you'd want to do that. Having these 2 little 1/2 inch or 9/16 inch holes have provided all the fresh air and ventilation that I've ever needed in utilizing this. And if you do this in the summertime or in the hot parts of the day or something like that, you just pick them up and you move them in the shade. The plants are still absorbing that ambient sunlight. Sunlight bounces off everything. That's how we see. And plants are, they're very smart little things there. You know, they capture that bouncing sunlight and ambient rays and still, you know, do fairly well. But anyway, he drilled all these holes in there. My recommendation is not to drill any holes on the top of your greenhouse. And the reason is because if you happen to have them outside, and I've done this before, and it comes a hard rain, well, your plants and your seedlings, delicate seedlings, they're all protected because you have a greenhouse. But if you have all these holes on top, or even just one hole, and it's going to pool up during the rain, and it's going to start dropping in on your plants. And if you just got your seeds started, or you got your delicate seedlings, it's going to be just like watering from the top on the watering can, and that force of that water might disrupt that. The tray still filled up on me during that rain all the way to the top. But my 2-inch soil blocks, and I think all your seed starting trays and your little cups and cow cups and all those little things, they're all going to be higher than this anyway. It was no problem. This thing pulled up. It come in through when this little channel's filled up with water, then it just trickled in through the snapping locking handle part here, and it filled up my tray. It was no problem. I just took the lid off, I just gently tilt, and I could drain as much water out as I want so that I could get it back down to a level about 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch. Left the top off, you know, to let, you know, if the weather was right, let the water evaporate and so forth. I just didn't want to lose all the nutrients from that filling up, you know, and pulling nutrients out of my soil blocks. Just kept it in the water so it could still feed my seedlings. Another reason I would take my hole here, and I'd come about 2 inches down from the top of this. I flip this thing back up, and I've done this, and fill about 4, 5, 6 inches of my soil and compost into one of these tubs, and then I'll utilize this, and I can put about 1 gallon of water, very moist gallon of water in there, and I'll use one of these like this for growing my sweet potato slips. Okay, works out perfect. The only advice I have on that is if you have any fertilizer or anything you're going to do, making your own mix and stuff, I would do your mixing in a 5-gallon bucket or a wheelbarrow instead of mixing it here. Mix it outside of it and then just put it in here, and that'll reduce your scratching of your clear plastic here, and it keeps it a little less dingy and cleaner. I fit about 52, I got about 52 in this particular tray, 2-inch soil blocks. I also use these pots here. They're about the size of a quart, and it has no problem, the lid and this container here has no problem supporting those 12 1-quart wet soil pots in there that I have planted already at all. And then also you'll see here I also fill up to this first, the first level of this particular lid or tray now, and I'll put my growing medium, because we grow wheatgrass, and so I'll utilize this as growing wheatgrass as well. So it's very multifunctional. Now, I talked about that stackability in the floor space. And one addition that I have added on this this year here is, we just take them in and out and we stack them on the floor. But what I decided to do this year, I got the idea, I went and purchased one of these furniture dollies. You can make one of these if you want, but I just decided to go ahead and go to my box store, go to your favorite box store, pay about $20, and you got one made out of hardwood, caster wheels on it. You ain't even got to mess with it for 20 bucks. And all I did is take a piece of 1x4 plank wood, and I just screwed some planks down across the middle there, so I got a nice flat surface with 1x4, and now I can set these containers on top of it, stack them, and that gives me the ability to roll them around where I want to. I put them in front of the sliding glass door here, but if we want to get in behind there or move them for whatever reason, to sweep, to mop, we just conveniently roll them around. The other thing is, because earlier in the season, late in the winter, if we do starts, when we come down in the morning and we got them up against the sliding glass door, we just pull it out and we rotate it, and we put the other side of the greenhouse toward the ambient or direct sunlight, because plants like to grow toward the source of the sunlight coming to and form a kind of memory. So we just flip them around and make them go the other direction if we want to. So this little furniture dolly has been an addition that I've added this year, and I love it. It really makes things a little bit more easier and convenient. We roll it closer to the front door here when we take our greenhouses out and set them out here on the front porch. You could set this dolly out on the back deck or back patio in your garage or something, and if you ever need them out of the way, you don't have to move these things individually or carry one or two at a time. You just simply roll it out of the way. It works out real nice. Folks, this is the best #1 storage container to turn into a miniature greenhouse. So I guess it's important to share with you what specific container this is. Well, if you don't know yet, this is a hefty brand 72 quart high rise. I'm going to put a picture of a label up here so you know exactly which container, because I have looked at other hefty storage containers and their lids are different. They don't quite meet the mustard as this particular one. This one here solves all my issues and problems that I had in previous containers when I was doing this. Those little frustrations and those little aggravations that didn't make it so pleasant and enjoyable and so easy and functional. So this is the 72 quart high-rise Hefty brand. I'm not being paid by Hefty, but Hefty, if you hear me out there, you did it by accident, but you made a perfect little miniature greenhouse here. Now the other one I seen was a Hefty. It was a 113 quart container, so it's bigger. I don't know about how strong that lid would be. I've never tried it and don't need it. And since it's so bigger, then you start looking into the weight issue, especially my 1 quart pots. That's the heaviest one I got. It's not my 2-inch soil blocks, even if I filled it completely full. The 1 quart pots that I utilize, that has the most weight to it, but still easily manageable and has no problem holding that wet soil in those 12 pots, 1 quart pots that I have in there. This Hefty container is the only one that I have seen so far, but I have stopped looking for the last 4 years. I have had no need to look any further. I'm not saying that there's not other ones out there, and there may even be better storage containers that meet all the criteria and requirements that we're looking for a miniature greenhouse. Something so easy to use and so mobile and so durable. There may be other ones out there. I haven't found it, hadn't seen it. This is the one. So that's it. The best miniature greenhouse container that I have seen. I hope you got something out of the little tips. Share it with somebody. Let me know what you think below. If you haven't subscribed and you want to, hit that little red subscribe button. If you want to know when I come on here yakking my jaws, hit that little notification bell next to it so you'll be notified. Pass it along, share it, folks. Have a nice day. May all your branches become full of fruit, and I'll see you next time. Whoa.